Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Hans Engel from the Directors Guild of Canada. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's going to be a fantastic conversation. Welcome to DGC Masterclass 2021, where we celebrate some of the most important filmmakers of our time, both Canadian and international. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional Indigenous lands that we all live and gather on today. Although this event is online and takes place at many locations, we each enjoy the privilege of living and working within an Indigenous territory. As a gesture of appreciation for our use of these lands, we ask that you join us in acknowledging the people who have lived and thrived in these regions across the continent for tens of thousands of years. We are extremely fortunate to have renowned DGC director Charles Officer with us tonight as our moderator. Charles is the founder and creative director of Toronto-based production company Cane Sugar Filmworks. He's an alumni director resident at the Canadian Film Centre, where his amazing debut feature, I was there on opening night, Nurse Fighter Boy, was produced. The film premiered at TIFF in 2008 and earned a record 10 Genie nominations for a debut film. His feature documentary, Mighty Jerome, is a breathtaking rendering of the rise and fall of Harry Jerome, Canada's greatest unsung track and field star. Produced by the National Film Board, the film premiered at Hot Docs in 2011 and won multiple awards, including a 2012 Emmy Award for Best Historical Documentary. Charles premiered his second feature documentary, Unarmed Verses, in 2017, winning Best Canadian Feature Award at Hot Docs, Vancouver International Film Festival, and TIFF Top 10 Festival, and garnering 2 CSA nominations for Best Feature Documentary and Best Cinematography. That same year, as if that wasn't enough, The Skin We're In, a television documentary that examines anti-Black racism through the perspective of journalist and activist Desmond Cole, received a CSA Donald Britton Award nomination for Best Social Political Documentary. His feature documentary, Invisible Essence, The Little Prince, is an authorized work about the transcendent novella Le Petit Prince. Realized in 2018, the film was sold internationally to Netflix and received 2 CSA nominations for Best Feature Documentary and Best Editing. Simultaneously, Charles' work crosses multiple television series, notably the forthcoming 1920s drama The Porter, starring Amel Amin and Alfred Woodard. Charles' latest feature, Akila's Escape, premiered at TIFF 2020 and received 5 CSA nominations, including Best Original Screenplay. He's an advocate for diverse creators and Black representation in the arts, and is a founding member of Canada's first Black Screen Office. He's also a member of the AGO, the Art Gallery of Ontario Board of Trustees, and Real Canada Board of Directors. Real honor to have Charles with us tonight. And I can't think of anybody better to be speaking with our featured director. Our featured director tonight is one of the most important filmmakers today, and we are honored to have him with us. Stanley Nelson is today's leading documentarian of the African-American experience. His films combine compelling narratives with rich historical detail to illuminate the underexplored American past. A MacArthur Genius Fellow, Nelson has received nearly every award in broadcasting, including 5 Primetime Emmy Awards and Lifetime Achievement Awards from the Emmys, the Peabody Awards, the International Documentary Association, and the Hot Docs 2020 Outstanding Achievement Award right here in Toronto. In 2016, Nelson was honored with a National Medal in the Humanities from President Barack Obama. In 2020, Nelson's film Freedom Riders was added to the National Film Registry from the Library of Congress. In 2019, the film Miles Davis, Birth of the Cool, became Nelson's 10th Sundance premiere, yes, 10th Sundance premiere, and first Grammy nomination for Best Music Film in 2020. In that same year, Nelson's 4-hour series Vic, about the complicated life and times of former NFL quarterback Michael Vick, premiered on ESPN's 30 for 30 to rave reviews. Nelson's latest feature film, Attica, a film that documents the 1971 prison uprising for Showtime, had its premiere here at TIFF. He also made the Emmy-nominated Tulsa Burning, the 1921 Race Massacre with Marco Williams for the History Channel, and Crack, Cocaine, Corruption, and Conspiracy, a harrowing look at the crack epidemic in the 1980s for Netflix. With his wife, Marsha A. Smith, Nelson co-founded Firelight Media, a nonprofit organization that supports and develops nonfiction filmmakers of color. Firelight Media's documentary lab has supported over 100 filmmakers whose films have premiered in theaters and on broadcast, cable, and streaming platforms. Their films have won Emmy and Peabody Awards and garnered accolades from festivals and critics alike. It is my absolute honor to welcome Charles Officer and Stanley Nelson. Come on in, guys.
Thank you, Hans.
Welcome. Amazing. Great to have you both here. Before I turn it over to you and get into the conversation, I just want to point out to those viewing the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. That's where you can type questions in for Charles and Stanley. Charles will be watching that throughout the evening and likely get to as many as he can at the end of the conversation. So type them in there. Also a reminder, you can choose your screen settings with a view button in the top right-hand corner. For any of you who are, if there are any left that are new to Zoom, that's where you do it. That's it for me. Really looking forward to this conversation, guys. Absolute pleasure. See you at the end. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Hans. Thank you. Wow. Well, welcome DGC fam and extended fam for joining us this evening. It's an absolute honor and privilege to be having a brief moment to have a conversation with one of my heroes, Mr. Stanley Nelson. We've met about 15 minutes ago, and I was just expressing to him how much of inspiration he has been to myself, my journey as a filmmaker, and there's so many parallels, and where I have, subject matter stories that I've been investigating and referring to Stanley's work to inspire and to learn from, and to really just grow the way that cinematic language of my own. So welcome, Mr. Nelson. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes. For this evening, because this is called a masterclass, I wanted to, talk a little bit about the process as a filmmaker, and all this, with the extensive body of work that we just heard of yours. Yeah, I'd like to lead into one of your most recent works, Attica, which with hopefully this conversation will lead into understanding a bit of your process that may not be specific to Attica, but specific that you may bring into all of your work, perhaps. Yes, it is incredible to be speaking with you, because you are that filmmaker, that creator, that storyteller who stands in a company of his own. And I'm wondering, after even hearing all these amazing films that you've created over this time, do you reflect on your body of work in any sort of given moment, maybe when you're lying in bed or out on the beach or somewhere? And I'm curious, when you reflect on your work and in those moments, would you be able to articulate or describe what you would say makes a Stanley Nelson film a Stanley Nelson film?
Oh, that's a really fascinating question. I think that that I do, and we do, really extensive research. We try to find incredible characters and great subjects. I'm trying to put humor in the film when we're cutting the film. We say anything that's remotely funny, we should leave in until, that's the last thing. And we should try to make the jokes work. It's almost like, it's a comedian that, sometimes you got to make the jokes work. but that, so many of the subjects are really very serious, so that, anything that's funny, we try to include. I try to take every single thing that I've learned about filmmaking and put that into every film that I make. One of the things that I think about sometimes is that, my father was a dentist, and he was a dentist, with kind of the soul and heart of a jazz musician, and he actually retired at the age of 55,
Wow.
because he said he retired with no money. He just said he was tired. He was tired of looking into mouths, and he was kind of like an oral surgeon, reconstructive dentistry, creative dentist, and he said it had it. There was nothing else he could do. And I think that I don't feel that way about filmmaking. I feel like I'm learning all the time, and hopefully I'm getting better all the time. And hopefully I can put everything that I've learned, on A, B, C, D, E, F, G film into H film, the next one, and I'm trying to do that. And I also, look at filmmaking, no matter what I'm doing, if we're doing Attica, if we're doing Freedom Riders, if we're doing The Murder of Emmett Till, they're entertainments, that you have to entertain the audience. If you're doing the most serious subject, if people are bored and are not moved and aren't concerned, it doesn't matter what the film is about. So finally, it's trying to almost like stay one step ahead of the audience and really entertain the audience.
Wow.
And that's a scary thing, because it's almost like when you use the word entertainment, you can feel people going, oh no,
yes,
oh no, you're not, no, but that's what and entertainment can take on a lot of different meanings, can take on a lot of different guises, so that Attica's an entertaining film, but if you've seen it, it's devastating.
It's devastating, and it's so, there's the build of tension, but it is entertaining. It's so engaging.
Yeah,
and
right. So maybe that's a better word,
because it's funny that I think my younger self would kind of throw my younger snobby or artsy nose up at like the idea of entertainment, but as I've grown and understood the medium and the power of it, that it is all these things, and I found I'm just going to, we might jump, but it's like with Attica, because you mentioned it, I'm just flowing with you here, is that I found, your characters entertaining, like, the raspiness of a voice, even an expression, and although they're talking about this story in this time that I know is going to go in this place that isn't joyful. I'm along with those moments, and I think that is maybe for me, it's as I'm looking at your films from a different point of view, that's what I find makes a Stanley Nelson film a Stanley Nelson film, is that it manages to take something that is historically happened. You manage to find an angle to present a point of view of truth that wasn't exposed. It's actually entertaining during the journey, but you're dealing with subject matter that is actually painful and traumatic even, and hard. And you find the soul of it. And so I think I'm interested in there's a personality that you bring into it, and And I'm curious about, maybe because you did mention your father, and I found it fascinating, your mother as well, like, her journey, and is that where you essentially, I don't know, found your soul to way, your perspective, the way you saw the world? Because I feel like your films have such a distinct point of view, that I'm curious about how you developed your point of view, because I think that is sometimes the downfall in filmmakers. We get confused or don't have a point of view, and something can feel, all over the place, but somehow you manage to create something that is masterful and moves in a way. And I'm curious about how you as a filmmaker has continued to develop your point of view on the stories you tell. I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one thing that I found is that filmmakers can have a point of view. It's what I call the illusion of objectivity. So I'm trying to create an illusion of objectivity. Like you can't argue with the films. But I obviously have a point of view. And so that's kind of really what I'm trying to do is to get a point of view across, or to get a story across, but not in a way that you can challenge it. One of the things that I saw early in my life, before I went into filmmaking, when I was kind of in my early 20s and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I ended up going to film school, but I saw a film called The Murder of Fred Hampton. And it was a documentary, but it had a point of view. It was and maybe it went a little overboard, but it was clear that it was on the side of Fred Hampton and the Black Panthers, and not on the side of the police, who came in and killed him. And it didn't waver. It didn't say but, but it was like,
right.
No, they came and murdered him, and that was really revealing for me, because it was like, okay, you can have a point of view, but also you want to have a point of view that people can't argue with. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because if you have a point of view and people can argue with it, then they're like, they're gonna not believe anything in the film. So it's very subtle choices that we have to make in making the film, kind of not to go overboard. And it's almost like we're presenting a case. One block, another block, another block, another block, another block, to present a case that you can't argue with.
Yeah. It is. It sounds like it definitely, because point of view is critical, and then through my journey of talking with individuals when I was first making documentaries and trying to figure it out for myself, and this idea of being objective, or the idea of use archive in a certain way, or people have these sort of ideas about what makes a documentary film. And I'm also would love to know, what have you grown to understand or still carry, that you hold yourself accountable for as a filmmaker when you're engaging with telling a story? Are there any specific things that you're like, I'm holding myself accountable for blah blah blah?
I think I'm, the main thing is I'm holding myself accountable for telling a good, compelling story. That's the main thing. When we did the little intro, they were playing Miles Davis, and then a couple of years ago, we did Miles Davis' Birth of the Cool, and it was like, Miles Davis, constantly was standing on my shoulder, like, little Miles Davis, doing like, don't fuck this up, Stanley. Fuck this. And so I'm trying to, just tell the story, and I'm accountable to the story. I feel like I've been really lucky to kind of tell these really important and seminal stories, and in a way, it's not about me, So in a way, I'm trying to, again, there's an illusion of kind of taking myself out of it, and just tell the story. One thing I would love to do at some point, and maybe I'll structure it something like this, is to kind of do a master class of Miles Davis or on film, because there's like, if you just watch the first 10 minutes of that film, there's like 30, 40 artistic choices that we made, and we're kind of throwing it all out there, in the beginning. One of the things that I think is really important is how films begin, and I really kind of watch a lot of times, how films open, and a lot of times with especially more recently in the films that we've made, I'm trying to throw everything in the toolkit, at you from the beginning, so that, Miles, the Black Panthers, especially, the Black Panthers was, we were trying to, we felt that we were making the Black Panthers Vanguard of the Revolution, that so many people are like, oh, I know about the Black Panthers, and we wanted you to just, for in the first, 5 minutes to shut up, like just shut up and sit down, because you don't know, and you're going to see something very different than you think you're going to see, So we started the Black Panthers Vanguard of the Revolution with animation, and the story of the blind men and the elephants, and we wanted to do that because, we wanted to kind of make you kind of look around and say, wait, am I in the wrong theater? Am I, what am I talking about, an elephant, a blind man, and then, it just hits, and it goes into the Shylights singing, for God's sakes, you got to give more power to the people, wearing purple jumpsuits on Soul Train. And we just wanted you to, we just bam, and we wanted to throw like kind of all these tools, in documentary filmmaking, up front, right at you.
That's incredible. And so I'm jumping in with flowing off of this is like that creative process, like what people don't, sometimes, we're filmmakers here and we're speaking, but in exploring such an opening such as the Black Panthers, from the writing stage for yourself, are you jotting some of those ideas down there? Are you collecting a little bit and then you get with your editor? Like, can you talk to me a little bit about some of the way that you work that way from writing and even getting to the editing suite and digging out some of these creative approaches?
Yeah, so I think that it's all of the above, with so many films, we wrote a script because, we had to, sometimes we're working with American Experience or National Endowment for the Humanities or something, and they need a script, so we write a script. But then, we know that we can throw it out, and we can kind of do what we want. So that Jonestown, the film we did on Jonestown, Life and Death of People's Temple, we thought, in all the scripts, we were going to go down to Jonestown, we were going to film palm trees waving in the breeze, and, we we're going to go back to Jonestown, and we were going to do a bunch of stuff there. And we started making the film. We found so much footage. We're like, we have to go down there. It's like,
right.
I don't want to go down there. It's like so creepy. I just kind of like, I just do. But anyway, but we knew we didn't have to go, and it would have served no purpose because we found, such great things, So, we kind of have a plan, but the plan changes, and that's a good thing, and hopefully that it just gets better. We could have gone and shot palm trees, but we didn't need to. So I think it's kind of always, you know, changing. I mean, part of like when I'm in the middle of production, you know, I mean, everything that I see and hear, you know, I think about, you know, as I move through life, I might be crossing the street and somebody, you know, honks their horn. I'm like, oh, what that horn? You know, we can put a horn in there, you know,
Right.
or whatever. But it's like, it's kind of like, you know, it's like the film exists, you know, here, and you know, anything that can feed into it, you know, music, you know, editing style. I mean, one of the things about filmmaking that I love is that, again, you know, I don't know everything. You know, I'm not
Mhm.
a dentist who knows everything and you know and reach the end of the line. I'm constantly trying new things. You know, that's one of the great things about, you know, the editing systems that we use now. You know, and I mean, you can try anything. You know, it's just try it. You know, sometimes I'll sit there, you know, with my phone on the side and you know, Spotify, you know, and I'll say, okay, you know,
Right.
let's see what happens if we put classical music in. I'll type in classical music and I'll press, you know, the play, and then, you know, say the editor, you know, turn down the sound here and let's see what happens. You know, oh wait, let's try hip hop. What, you know, let's just try a drum beat. You know, anything, because I truly don't know, you know, what will work. You know,
Right.
you know, and sometimes, I mean, sometimes, very rarely, very rarely for me, get this flash and I'll be like, that shit's gonna work. You know, like that's
Right.
work. You know, that's, you know, I don't doubt it's gonna work. But you know, and then just as many times, I'm like, you know, try this. Oh God, it doesn't work. You know, let's try something else. But I think
Yeah.
it's a matter of experimenting, you know, and being open, and that's that's what's exciting. I mean, that's part of the that's you know, the creative process.
Yeah. And that is, do you constantly work with a visual researcher, like, and can you talk a little bit about that, how that, because you're, the way that you use archive has been such an inspiration for me. It's just like, it's, and sometimes I'm like, how does he find this shit, like, you know, it's incredible. And just really, I'm curious about how you work with a visual researcher, and as well, like how, you know, as you find material, how does that, you know, inspire, like, as well, some of your writing perhaps? Does it go hand in hand, researching at the same time as well as writing and visual material? I'm really curious about your process there. It's because it's so deep, you go into such deep spaces, and I'm like, wow, it's I want to know how he does that.
Yeah, I mean, I should back up and take straight. And if you don't, if I don't answer the question, you know, just, you know, bring it back, because I'm
Sure,
you know,
sure, absolutely. Yeah.
you know, a couple of things. You know, one, you know, I think it's pertinent that, you know, I went to film school. You know, I mean, I didn't fall into to making films. I didn't go to journalism school. I didn't go to art school. I went to film school. You know, where we watched Citizen Kane. You know, it seemed like every day or something like that. You know, you know, we studied the history of film, and so, you know, that's my background in making films, and I wanted to. One of the things I was really interested in is camera. You know, was working as a camera person, which is probably the thing that I've done the least. But when I got out of film school, you know, I got a job as an assistant editor, and on my first film, $2 in a Dream, the story of Madam Walker, you know, I directed it, I produced it, I did the sound, I edited it, you know, and and that was on, you know, 16mm film. And so that's my, you know, background. So I kind of, you know, I kind of know, you know, editing and all those other things. But one of the things that happened on $2 in a Dream, and I'll try to keep the story short, is that, you know, I met this woman who put out records about women singing the blues, and you know, she had 3 or 4 records, you know, wild women sing the blues, and, you know, blues, I ain't got no man blues, and compilations like that. And she said that she heard about this song called Nappy-Headed Blues. You know, we were doing a film about Madam Walker, who was a hairdresser. And she said she had Nappy-Headed Blues. And she had never heard the song, but she had a citation for it. So you know, I mean, it took me 7 years to make this film because it was my first film. I had no money, you know, and over the 7 years, we're kind of constantly looking for this song. You know, we're looking for other things, a million other things. And finally, we find a guy, and he's in Canada. He's in Vancouver, and he says he's a record collector. And he says, "Oh yeah, I got Nappy-Headed Blues. Send me $5 and I'll send you a tape of the Nappy-Headed Blues." And so we had never heard the song, right?
Wow.
And so he sends us Nappy-Headed Blues, and the first verse is, "My hair is can't you, don't you, you can't comb it, don't you try. Nappy, that's the reason why." It was like a funny song, you know, about Black women's hair. It's a woman singing it. And then the last verse of the song is, "Going to Madam Walker, give her $50 bill. Go to Madam Walker, give her $50 bill. Say, Madam, please help a young girl, if you will." Right. And we're like, I mean, I remember like with the associate producer, you know, we're sitting there like, holy, I mean, like, did we just hear that? Because we had never heard it, you know? And so always after that, I'm like, you never know what you're gonna find, you know, like just keep digging, you know? And so many times what happens is nobody's ever really done the digging, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, excuse me if anybody here, you know, works for, you know, a news station, but you know, the news doesn't have the time, so that you know, a news director may look up and say, "Oh, the anniversary of Attica is next Monday. Pull the clips, you know, pull some."
Right.
And they'll pull the clips, and they'll, you know, and then the next year, you know, they'll do the same thing, the same clips, but nobody spends a year and a half, you know, just find everything, you know, and that's what we say, find everything, you know. We started working with an archival producer now, but back to Madam C.J. Walker, 2000 Dream, my first film, I did all the research.
Mm-hmm.
So I
You developed your own sensibility, like how you dig, right?
Yeah, I know you can dig, you know. I mean, and you have to be creative. You know, the film was about hair, you know. So I went down to the National Archives, no, the Library of Congress in Washington, and every song that's copywritten in every record that's copywritten, our song that's copywritten on a record, they have that music. That's part of what they do. And so and they're all listed by the title. So we went down there. I went down there with a list, you know, like nappy, you know,
Wow.
you know, nigger, you know, hair, you know, anything, you know, color, you know, and we just looked up and just tried to find, you know, any music that we could. But you know, it's just a matter of digging and trying to be creative and digging in a way that other people haven't, because there's stuff, you know. When I did a film called A Place of Our Own about Martha's Vineyard, you know, and Black resorts. And one of the things I found, you know, is that you know, so Martha's Vineyard, you know, Oak Bluffs is part of Martha's Vineyard, is a Black section, and Black, you know, middle class or upper middle class people have been going there, you know, since the 40s, 50s, 30s. And one of the things when I would talk to people, I would say, you know, do you have any home movies or something? And like, you know, like they would go, like literally I would say, you know, well, do you have any home? Yeah, we talk. I say, yeah, any home movies? And I'd hear them clump upstairs to the attic. And they bring back these big boxes of movies, you know. And I realized that, and I didn't even think about this going into it, but that, yeah, these are middle class African Americans, right? So they can afford movie cameras, and they're on vacation. And so where do you know, so you film your kids and your family and stuff. And so they had movies of you know, like amazing stuff from the 40s and 50s and 60s of, you know, Black people on the beach and partying and stuff like that.
Wow. And how much time, I mean, even in that situation, I mean, this is what I mean, the extent of the work that it is, it's you sit down and you watch that material yourself. Yeah, you go through it and you
And so now, I mean, we have, we have archival producers. So on Attica, the latest film, we had an archival producer, Rosemary Rotundi, who's an expert, but we hire her. We don't hire her at the end of the film. We don't hire her in the middle of the film. We hire her from the first day of the film, and she's looking. Sometimes we can't afford it, and we say, okay, you work for 12 weeks at the beginning, and then 12 more weeks in the middle, and then 12 more weeks at the end. Sometimes we do it like that. But if I had my druthers and I had enough money, I would just put them on the whole time. Right. So because that it's like another character. The footage, and I mean, look, the footage for Attica, and I hope everybody gets to see it. I mean, it is just incredible. I mean, it's like literally, it's like literally like its own story. You can't.
It is. It's so incredible because you're right there. Like it puts you, and this is what it's amazing. I mean, I found this, with your work as well. I'd say it's also what makes the Stanley Nelson film stand. You put us there, and it's really just phenomenal, the amount of that material, like the characters I got to connect with. And these are men that are like, I have never, I didn't know a single name. I know the story of Attica, but the connection that I have now with some individuals is quite remarkable. That material is just phenomenal. When you're editing and you're cutting, like, do you like to give space to the editor and a little bit, or what point do you kind of really dig in with and sit in the room, and I'm curious about that with your relationships that way, and maybe they're not always the same. Each project may need something different, but is there a way that you like working there?
Yeah, I mean, with the editors, especially, I mean, in my filmmaking life, there are a couple of editors, that I really, love and kind of get me. We'll say, okay, cut this 5-minute scene or 10 minutes. We'll talk about it. We'll say, or I'll give them the bites, like these are the bites. And then, I'll say, how long will it take you to cut this, 5 or 10 minutes? And they'll say, 5 days. And I'll say, no, it'll take you 2 days. You have 2. And then they'll say, crazy, I need 4. And then I'll say, well, what about 3.5? I mean, and because, I mean, look, and then I don't, that's their job. And then, it's like they want as much time as they can have. But, if I just listen to them, we never finish anything. So anyway, but and then I come back and then we really, kind of get down to it, but I, they go knowing it, go in knowing that, kind of really what I'm looking for and what I want. And then part of what I tell them is either ask for help or show me something that you think works. Don't show me something that doesn't work. And like,
right, so you can respond to something, you can engage, like at least have a reaction to. And
yeah, I mean, it's probably okay to say, hey, I don't know how to make this work, but don't show me something that is crap and I know is crap, and so I want them to get to a point, hopefully, where the stuff works. But again, I started out as an editor. I'm pretty, I work really closely with the editors, the moves on the stills and stuff like that. I mean, I still, drives everybody I work with crazy. Still I try to print out all the stills, I try to print them out,
and put them up, or like you print them out or.
I don't usually put them up, but I print them out, and and then I'll do a sequence, especially so like in miles. In Attica, we don't use that many stills because we had so much footage, and basically they were there, filming. But we use some. But in Miles, which has long photographic sequences, I would put in a folder, maybe 30 photos that I think would fit the sequence. And then I try to put them in some kind of order. And I'll even, take grease pencils and say, go from this close up into this wide shot, or from this wide shot to this close up, all of that. I mean, I just don't like looking at photos on the computer, because I always feel like, you can miss a photo. You hit the wrong button and it skips 10 photos, and you just miss the photos. So I like to look at them, on paper, print it out, and then think about the moves and what we're going to do with them.
And we're going to talk about Attica, just a little segue into that in a second, but I'm really curious about as well, when you are engaging with characters that you're going to, for the film, and is it, how do you really pinpoint? Do you have a certain sort of criteria or way that you construct, I'd say questions, but how you engage with characters, like just even with Attica, having I forget her first name, but Quinn, the daughter of the guard, and like to get her to even participate, and speak on this time, and I'm curious about how you're approaching that, and then some of the other characters you do. Like I'm curious about the way that you formulate your conversations. I know it's based on the subject and what you want to get out of the individual, and understand, doing some homework around them, but is there something that you have learned that is a sort of a way that you like, that keeps you on point, or keeps you, that you resort to very often?
Yeah, I mean, I try to make, I try to do very detailed questions. I mean, if I have questions, and I might jot down questions. If it's a major interview, I might be jotting down questions, like all the time, and put, like the person's initials, and just, and then before the, like a week before the interview, I go back and look all through, all these different papers, and then just try to formulate all the questions. Then a lot of times, if we're on location, like the night before, I'll go through these questions. So I might have, literally, 6-10 pages of questions, handwritten, and then I'll go back through it and try to put them in some kind of, order of importance, like
Right.
I'll put an A next to them, right, and then B, and then C, so that I'm not, and if I have time, I'll put all the A's together, and then all the B's together, and then all the C's together, because I want to make sure that I get all the questions, so you're not going to get 6 pages of questions.
Yes, exactly. That's like 2 days of conversation.
Right. People are just like, okay, get out of here, okay, leave, so I try to, figure out the questions that are the most important. And then, then I think one of the things I'm really good at, is just trying to have a conversation with people. And I can write. I have a pad, with the questions, but I can write. So like I'm talking to you, and I can write follow-up questions, like, blah blah blah, follow up, and and like it's going all over the page. You know what I mean? It's not like I can write, on the line, but I can write well enough so that I can still read it. But I'm having a conversation, as long as, and I only look down when I have to. So, okay, that subject matter has reached an end, and so let me now, ask, oh yeah, and then I just think, one of my favorite questions is why. And I love one word questions, because you can cut yourself out and it seems like the person is saying something, So if somebody says, I was really scared. I was scared out of my mind, right? And and I just say, why? And I cut that out. And they say, so what it'll be is, and I was really scared. I was scared out of my mind. Because it was the biggest, whitest
Right.
that I've ever seen in my life. And so so I'm just like, I'm thinking about, that. And, and in the interview, I'm always thinking about, it doing interviews for me is like super exhausting because,
Yeah.
I'm one, asking the questions and trying to have a conversation. Two, I'm trying to think about how this is going to fit in the edit. Did this person give me a beginning, middle, and an end, or can I cut it in some way, or do I have to go back? And two, I'm trying to, read the person's language, like, see that are they comfortable, are they, one of the things that we did in Jonestown, about People's Temple was we were interviewing this guy, Stanley, who he was one of the people who survived Jonestown. He did not die that day, and he just did not kill himself, because he was not a true believer, and he just didn't do it. And it was a terrible interview. I mean, and like there were only like 3 or 4 survivors, so he was like, crucial, and it was a terrible interview. It was terrible. And then, we were trying to go chronologically. And then when I asked him, about that day, what happened that last day when all those people committed suicide, he was just like, bam, 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 bam.
Wow.
And I realized after that I didn't read his body language. I was so stuck on, doing it chronologically. And all he could think about was getting the part out about what happened that day, right?
Right.
I should have asked him that first, And so that's an example of kind of like not being where I should have been, because if I had been really present and see, it could have been like, okay, so just like tell me about that day, and then we'll go back to tell about the first day you joined and everything.
Wow. It's incredible because I found that with myself with like, I'm kind of formulating like, again, like pages of questions and trying to get it down. And sometimes I get stuck on like trying to keep on this chronological order and then, and then finding myself, okay, panicking because I deviate and I just kind of go with the flow. And I'm like, oh shit, did I get like what all those things that I was trying to plot but it's incredible what you're describing because I had a visceral reaction when you're talking about all the senses and all the attention and how exhausting it is to have these conversations because you're listening, you're taking notes, you're reading behavior, you're thinking about how it works with the film and all these things. Is there something out of that, like where you can say it's essential for filmmakers, documentary filmmakers or not, to let's say documentary filmmakers to continue to practice, to be better at what they do? Like, I'm wondering if there's, is it the essential thing listening for you, or is it?
That's exactly the word that I was going to use. I think the essential thing is listening. The other essential thing is know what you want, to know why you're there, and the other thing is, I forgot what the other thing is. So maybe but I think that but listening is the key. I know the other thing is to be on that third level to understand, like how it's going to get cut in, to the film, because sometimes, little things can trip you up, like you never have them, the person just keeps saying he, and they never say who he is, and like
Right.
the other room, like, oh God, I mean, you can always figure something out, I mean, a couple of times we've gone back and just had somebody say, Miles Davis 5 times, cut it in because we don't, but I think listening and trying to I mean, it's really, but also you're dealing on those 3 levels, one is what people are saying, 2 is you're in the edit room, and 3 you're trying to just be cognizant of what's happening, to the person that you're interviewing. Are they bored? Do they need to get a drink of water? Are they into the conversation? One of the things that I think that sometimes filmmakers do so much is just not kind of listen. It's just go from one question to the next. Like while they're doing the interview, while they're answering one question, the filmmaker is looking down, thinking about the next question. And I think you don't need to think about the next question until there's that break, and then there's also the trick of just not asking another question and just letting the subject so when we did Madam Walker, and this was kind of my first film, it was a long time ago, we were filming somebody in Indiana where Madam Walker was based, and somebody who was kind of with us on the crew or something, said, hey, look, I just talked to this woman and she's 98 and she had a beauty shop, we should interview her, and we were like, okay,
Wow.
And she said, and she said, Madam Walker was a godsend for the Black woman. She was just a godsend. And I just didn't say anything and just looked at her, and she said, because I couldn't even do my own hair. I only knew how to do white hair. And Madam Walker, and the pause was just brilliant. I mean, the pause was just brilliant. I mean, people try, a lot of times people try, it's awkward. So people aren't used to all that awkward silence. So a lot of times they fill it in, with something that, they hadn't really thought through because they're just trying to fill in the silence.
Wow. Let's talk a little bit about Attica. You just mentioned something that's really exciting about the film. Would you mind sharing that? Some news you received today? Or?
Oh yeah, the National Board of Review just named it one of the top 6 documentaries of the year. So that's good, and we're running around, showing the film around. So it's great to know that, that people have watched it and understood it and liked it. I guess I like the right word for it, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I mean, it is a funny thing to say, I really like it, but it is, I can say I loved it. And it is, you were a young man when this happened.
Yeah.
1971. And I think you mentioned that you were just, maybe venturing film school. Maybe you weren't even there at that time. I'm wondering about you as a young Black man at that time, hearing about this. Do you remember where you were and even your first immediate reaction when you heard that this was actually happening?
Yeah, I mean, Attica was a thing that went on over 5 days. So, we heard, that the prisoners in this huge, correctional facility had taken over and had taken hostages, and that they were negotiating because they had the law enforcement had to negotiate because the prisoners had hostages. They had over 30 hostages, and they were negotiating, and then all of a sudden it was just, oh no, and they went in with guns blazing, and killed a whole bunch of people. And I mean, it was shocking, it's just shocking. And I think that as I thought about it, throughout the years, I kind of never understood why, like exactly what happened. Why did it go from negotiating and thinking that there was going to be a negotiated settlement and negotiated peace, and what finally happened. But I also knew that there were like 1,000 people in the yard, 1,000 prisoners, and that there were a good portion of those people that were still alive, and could talk about it, and could talk about the feeling of what happened. And then we started just to kind of research the film and just the broadest outlines. We realized that it was like a roller coaster ride. It was a roller coaster, and that you could like tell this story as a thriller, as a real thriller, as from taking the prison to the exuberance, as they say, of the first day or two, when they're free, they're out in the yard and they're free, to the devastating and disastrous way that it ended.
Did you choose Attica, or do you think Attica chose you to tell this? I mean,
a little bit of both, I think.
Yeah.
A little bit of both. I don't know. You start telling the stories, and I mean, as who've made a bunch of great films. It's like, it becomes bigger, way bigger than anything that you ever thought of. It's not like I thought of. I thought of Attica, the film as a whole. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not that it was like, oh, I'm gonna make this. It was like, I'm gonna make something.
Right.
I'm gonna make something, but it turned into this, and I mean, it's hard to understand, but I'm sure you, as a filmmaker, you see the film after it's made, and you're just like, sometimes you're like, oh man, this is incredible. It really worked out, and because it's not, it's almost like it's an out of body experience. It's not, it's like, I mean, if I see a film that I did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I'm like, what? I did this? How did this happen?
Blackout, creative blackout, just going into the zone.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Did you have a thesis going into making Attica, or did you find it along your journey of making the film?
I think that no. I mean, I think that we wanted the prisoners to speak. We felt that it was the prisoner's story, but that it was also a story that was so much bigger, and that was the what we wanted to tell. So that it was almost like, in some weird way, Freedom Riders was a model, because when Freedom Riders is a story about these people on this bus that's going through the South, and they don't know what's going on. They don't know that the governor is like refusing to protect them, and that Bobby Kennedy is now talking to the governor and trying to get him to do something, and that John F. Kennedy is above that, trying to get him to do something, and that the Russian and the Polish and the communist governments are now talking about using this as propaganda against America. But all the while, it's the story of these few people on this bus just going from town to town, and in the same way, Attica, was that same story, that it's like you're peeling layers back, so that the prisoners are in the yard, but then the families of the hostages are outside and hostile, and there's over 500 armed armed forces outside that are hostile. And then there's the newscasters. Then, there's Rockefeller, the governor, who is finally ultimate authority. And over him is Richard Nixon, who's in his ear, and as somebody said, when Richard Nixon came in, they were like, oh no, and Richard Nixon is in Rockefeller's ear telling him what to do, but all the while, it's these prisoners who are fighting, for rights, and not to be abused in this prison. And so, that was the story that we wanted to tell, and tell it as kind of a rounded story. I mean, one of the great things I think that works in the film is the hostage families, that you see who are just great, and who lent us, that footage and those pictures of their home movies, and Attica, the town that was all white. I mean, it was all white except for this prison that was pretty much all black and brown. And so we knew that we wanted to tell the story, but again, more and more layers kept coming as we found more stuff, and that we found the conversations, especially with Nixon and Rockefeller before the retaking of the prison.
Oh,
wow. Not to go up there.
That was incredible. Like, it's just, the people, and you can have your perspective about, prisoners, like people do bad things, lock them up and treat them like dogs. And here it is. It's just, the higher percentage, as we've known, and still exists today, is that Black people are the higher percentage in prisons. And it was, like 50 years ago, however you want to say it, 1921, there's what's happening and what we're seeing, like, when people are talking about this awakening that, and using terms like systemic racism and all this stuff, it's like there's the example this is where it's been living and existing. And I felt like it was so present. The film feels so present, although I'm watching this thing that I've read about but experiencing it in this time. And I think anytime maybe I would feel it's present, because I think as Black people, we have these experiences that are in our bloodlines and in our DNA, and the experience of watching it. I'm also curious about when you were in post on this and what was happening in America at the time while you were making this film, and how did that have an effect on you, and you're shifting your point of view, or even saying, in yourself, like, it's about time the truth about this is being told.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it changed the film in any way. I don't think it changed the way we told the story. I think what happened is happening is it changed the way that the story is being received.
Right.
People aren't skeptical as they might have been. I mean, you understand that what's going on is what's going on. I think that's clear. I mean, I think anybody that sees the film, with any kind of brain, understands, after they take over the prison and they kill 40 people, the law enforcement are laughing and joking and yelling white power.
Yeah.
That's on film. I mean, that's what's going on. But I think it opened up, the window started opening up so we can see, Attica for what it is. I think that is what changed, more than it affected the film. I mean, it was strange, that we were making the film in the George Floyd moment,
Yeah.
and the protests, and that those things were still going on. But I mean, I think that one of the things that I feel that for the vast majority of films that I've made, is that we don't want to, kind of flash forward, and, end the film with, George Floyd being killed, and, something comes on the screen that's going,
Right.
And it's still going on.
Right.
I think that one of the things that you asked me really early on, some of the things that I think, I try to do, or it makes a Stanley Nelson film. I think that it's really important that the audience discovers stuff themselves, and when the audience discovers, things themselves, even if it's small things, that's when, the films and storytelling have their real power. And that can be really small things, like in Attica, on the first day, they're digging latrines, and then one of the guys, prisoners who were there, says, I didn't know what a latrine was, but the guys from Vietnam, told us how to dig latrines, and you see them digging these. And then at the end, where they're made to crawl through the latrines, we don't have to say anything. You understand, because you've seen them dig the latrines, and then later on you see them crawling through the feces in the latrines, and when we screen the film, you can hear gasps go up from the audience, because the audience knows, and so it's like a discovery from the audience. Like they know what's happening because they've seen those latrines, and they know that the latrines that they're having to crawl through.
Yeah, those images. I mean, it's like I was just in my heart was in my throat as feeling this tension build, and this the moments of just like, we're going to get through, there's going to be progress, and it shifts, it takes a turn, and not being sure what's going to really happen, but you kind of know something is going to explode, and it's this excessive continuation of excessive police force, that's been going on for generations.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things about that last half hour, whatever it is of the film, is that you get the feeling that it's not going to end well.
Yeah,
but it is worse than you could ever imagine.
Yeah,
you couldn't, in your wildest dreams, you couldn't have imagined, that we wanted to take you on this roller coaster ride. And one of the things that I've come to start talking about, we talk about this film, is that, you also have to hold on to the exuberance of the first couple of days, when they thought that they were going to get, something, when they were out in the yard and had a certain amount of freedom and fresh air that they didn't have inside the prison. I think that it's important that we remember that, because it is a ride, but the end is so devastating that it's kind of hard to, you can't, you're just stuck there,
Yeah, and I think I've heard you describe, part of your mission is correcting the narrative. And again, I feel like, for those, myself, what you've done with the film is actually you've brought you've held a mirror, and the reflection isn't that good, and here it is, but that truth of all these individuals, these human beings that were executed.
Mm-hmm.
And the responsibility and the accountability is like still to this right. Remains undealt with, and it is. Does it feel sometimes like when you go to that extent of exposing that truth, and the injustice still kind of remains? How do you reconcile with that as a filmmaker? Even like, you've just presented evidence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that so many of my films have kind of, not ended that way. Freedom Summer and Freedom Riders. In some ways, the murder of Emmett Till. When people stand up. So I think that a bunch of films don't end that way. We kind of looked for a happy ending for Attica, but we couldn't find one. That's a joke, but I mean, it ended where it ended, and I
Right.
think, I mean, look, I don't want to give away the whole film, but look, when Big Black comes out at the end, people, stood up and applauded, people. I mean, like, 'cause that's something good that you can hold on to, at least Big Black lived,
Yes. Wow. I'm just going to go to a couple of questions for this last little segment, and I'll read a couple here. So there's a question here. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Do you have any advice for someone who is a narrative feature filmmaker wanting to do a documentary for the first time?
No. No, I mean,
do your work, bro.
Watch a lot of docs. I mean, watch a lot of docs. There's this. They're all available. And it's such a interesting time. When I went to film school, either the teacher had to order a 60mm film, or it had to come to an art house. And you could hear about a film for years and not be able to see. I mean, literally not be able to see it. I mean,
Right.
Today can't understand that. But like what, look at a lot of docs and then think of it's still about the artistry of filmmaking. It's still about the art. And just like in a feature film. I just think it's about telling these stories creatively, and today with docs, there's so many different ways and so many different forms and so much you can do, that look at docs and figure out little what's the story you want to tell and how you want to tell it.
Yeah. I when I made my first doc, it was after I made my first fiction film, and I didn't really know. I've seen some docs, but I didn't really know what it was, and the applications or the things that I was, as young as and early on I was at the time in the whole journey. I resorted to the things I knew about fiction filmmaking. Some principles there. I mean, you still, you need turns, you still need compelling characters. There's these things that you still need to do. And I kind of railed against the idea of identifying, like, okay, you're making a film, like, still at the end of the day, and that expression and the story you're choosing to tell, and finding the way that you need to tell it. And I think that is part of the beauty of this work, is that which each film you get to explore another aspect of self and how you create. And so yeah, I think for the question that just came in, I think it's, like, watch a bunch of Stanley Nelson films. There's a whole bunch of them.